from coming to the United States because their mission is now turned into a humanitarian mission, something that they're not sworn to do. And so the Biden administration is failing these families and failing our neighboring countries and failing the citizens of the United States by their inability to maintain and manage this challenge. And what's the result? 55 pounds of fentanyl came into this sector in this fiscal year. How much more could we have caught or interdicted if we had people out on the front lines instead of in court, in hospital, or in the Donna detention facility? 55 pounds, enough to kill 4,400 Americans. Think of what's out there that we're not interdicting. So it's a drug crisis too. It's a money laundering and terrorism crisis, something we're concerned about on House Financial Services Committee. In February, CBP says, based on their estimates and based on these trafficking numbers, $14 million a day, almost $15 million a day are being earned by the cartel. $400 million in 1 month, the month of February. You don't think that's a terror finance problem on the border of the United States? So President Biden and the Vice President, this is out of control. It's a crisis. Your leadership is failing, and you need to take action to protect the American people. Yield back. Thanks.
Any word for those companies that were building the wall and they were just told to stop?
We'll get into questions in our last speakers. Nicole.
Thank you.
Maliotakis.
I'm Nicole Maliotakis. I represent New York's 11th District. I want to thank Minority Whip Scalise for inviting me to be a part of this trip. What the Biden administration does not want you to know is simply that they have handed over the borders of our country to the cartels and smugglers. Our Custom and Border Protection, our law enforcement, they do an amazing job, but they need to have the resources, they need to have the staffing, and they need to have the ability to not have their hands tied to actually take action and do the work that they need to do to protect our country. At the current pace of 150,000 to 170,000 individuals crossing illegally, we're talking about, by this summer, more than 1 million people crossing illegally through our southern border in the year 2020 so far, come this summer, which is more people than reside in President Biden's home state of Delaware. That is the amount of people we're talking about. Now, I'm the daughter of immigrants. My mother is a Cuban refugee. I have a lot of compassion for the individuals that I saw today. When my mother came to this country, there were rules in place. There was order. What I saw this trip was chaos, disorder. And I saw people, children, being exploited by bad people who are making billions of dollars, trafficking individuals, trafficking drugs, trafficking guns. And it's incredibly shocking to me that any country, that any leader would allow this to happen.
Thank you. We'll be happy to take questions now. Yes, sir.
What do you tell the companies that were building the wall and all of a sudden we're told just to stop?
Yeah, on day one when President Biden took office, he ordered a halt to construction of the wall. And again, the border wall was working, and these are contracts in place. So the taxpayers of America are still paying the companies who have these contracts to build the wall, but now taxpayers are paying for the wall not to be built. And these are abandoned work sites. Like I told you, a Border Patrol agent just recently was severely injured because he was apprehending somebody crossing illegally, and he went through the work site following this illegal crosser and ultimately ended up getting seriously injured, may not be able to work again. Again, what does Biden tell to people like that are experiencing this?
Hi, Congressman McCall, you mentioned that you had a briefing with Secretary Mayorkas. Could you explain how long that was? And you said he didn't need the hangar, but didn't he tour Donna when he came a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I questioned him during our hearing. He never answered my question about why did you rescind the migration protection protocols that remain in Mexico, the asylum agreements, which were masterfully negotiated by the prior administration, which has created this problem now. I did not meet with him, but I will tell you that some of the top leadership at CBP were quite disappointed that he didn't visit the Donna detention facility while he was here. I think just having a Q&A with just a couple of your employees in an airport hangar is not a sufficient trip, and it does not help the morale that I'm very worried about. I've worked with Border Patrol when I was a federal prosecutor, chairman of Homeland. I worry about their morale, particularly when it's been stated 40% of their efforts are taken away from the front lines to become babysitters and bus drivers. I think it's incumbent upon a leader to visit his troops, to go see compassionately what they have created and try to fix it. And he failed to do that.
A quick follow-up. How long did he meet with the whole group?
He did not meet with us.
Oh, you did not meet with
No.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you met with him before. This wasn't this trip.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, two questions here. Hunter Davis with Fox News. The first for Representative McCall and the second for Representative Scalise, or whichever order. The first, the border wall and the construction that has stopped has left a lot of levees in jeopardy. One here in Mission, Texas, specifically maybe 3 miles from here, is currently down, and there's no border wall protecting this city like it was supposed to. Has that been a conversation as we approach hurricane season?
100%. So we saw the unfinished levee and wall. And, levees can provide infrastructure to protect the border as well, and they have a practical purpose for flood mitigation. What Border Patrol told us today was that they're very much in jeopardy of flooding now because it's not finished. It's put on pause. Congress's intent when we passed this legislation and appropriation was to finish the job. And President Biden, by executive orders, defying the will of Congress. And so it is a problem. The agents are very worried about hurricane season approaching, as you know. We in Texas in August, September, and October. And if it's not completed, it's going to pose a threat to the residents there. So I hope we can move forward, with this. But it is a danger to the residents here in Mission and in McAllen.
And then following up here with Representative Scalise, I don't know if it's clear to everybody, but it seems clear that as of now, there's going to be no movement on the current policies that are in place at the border. So what is Congress going to do? What are you guys going to do when you get back to Washington to help the situation here?
We're going to do everything in our power to first raise awareness about what's happening, because the Biden administration clearly doesn't want America to know. They're keeping the press out of these facilities for a reason. They're trying to hide this national scandal. We're going to also file legislation to reverse some of those executive actions President Biden took that every Border Patrol agent will tell you. It's not like the jury's out. It's not like you get 5 different suggestions. Every border agent who knows how to manage America's border tells you the exact same thing. It was the Biden executive orders reversing those Trump policies that led to this national disgrace, this influx of people across our border. So clearly continuing to call on President Biden to come see this for himself. Look, maybe he's so ashamed of it that he wanted to dump this off on Kamala Harris. She's so ashamed of it, she doesn't want to have anything to do with it, which is why she won't even come here herself. Imagine a vice president of the United States being placed in charge of a national crisis by the president, and weeks later she still hasn't come down to see what's going on so she can address it. That's a dereliction of duty. And so we call on the president and vice president to do their job. They can reverse this policy tomorrow. We'll continue to raise national awareness. We'll try to push legislation. Good luck trying to get Pelosi to address this scandal, because Speaker Pelosi doesn't want to address this problem either. But again, when you talk about what's happening in that Donna detention facility, for example, you've got right now in most states, you can't have more than 250 people in a facility. Restaurants are being told they can't have more than 25% capacity, and yet you've got the Donna detention facility right down the street that has a capacity of 250 people, that has over 4,000 in that facility today, in the middle of a global pandemic. Where's President Biden's concern about the science that he used to talk about when he was a candidate that now he has abandoned? He is letting, they said about 10% of the people in that facility right now have COVID-19. And they're not 6 feet apart, they're not 3 feet apart. When we saw these cells that they're holding these kids in, designed for 33 people and there's over 400 in them, they're inches apart, many without masks, transmitting COVID. They're super spreader events, and you don't see any concern by President Biden for that. These are the things that we're going to continue to expose and let people all across the country know what's going on. You see so many members of Congress from all around the nation. We're going to continue to spread this message, and it can all be stopped today. But the ultimate goal would be to get President Biden to address this problem and fix it. He can do it. He created this problem with a stroke of a pen. He can fix this problem with the stroke of a pen.
Last question.
Representative
Scalise, Congress reconcile the fact that, according to reports, HHS is spending $60 million a week to take care of the unaccompanied minors, and the administration right now is trying to propose a big infrastructure bill that it means a lot of money for taxpayers. And the second part, what do you think, and what is your message to the Secretary of Homeland Security? He did not bring any journalists. It was not open for the media on any of these trips. It's important to have the transparency of mobile reporters having access to these facilities.
Yeah, we would like to see full transparency. And as you mentioned, the Secretary of Homeland Security came, as Congressman McCall said, stayed in the hangar the whole time, didn't take questions from the press. He only talked to a few Border Patrol agents. And if he listened to them like we listened to them, they all are saying the same thing that can fix this problem, and he refuses to do it. But if you get back to the money, we're talking billions of dollars of cost to the American taxpayer by President Biden's crisis he's created. But before you go borrowing money from our kids and grandkids to do trillions in infrastructure, they're already spending money that's been appropriated to build this wall, and they're spending that money to not build the wall. How about you take the money that's already being spent and actually build wall, border security, infrastructure, flood protection. I'm from New Orleans. We know a thing or two about levees and flood protection, and they told us thousands of families in Mission, Texas are exposed to flooding today on the midst of hurricane season because President Biden stopped building their flood protection. And they, by the way, the administration promised they wouldn't leave them hanging during hurricane season, and he's left them holding the bag there. It's a national disgrace what's happening, all self-created by President Biden.
All right, thanks everybody. Repatriation, that the kids, I mean, in 2014 we had the same issue, and a lot of the kids were sent back to their countries. Their first ladies came, they visited with them. That should be a way to try to send them back, and that way it's not the burden on the
What the
taxpayer.
Border Patrol agents will tell you is that the word's gotten out all across, not just Central and South America. At Donna, there's over 50 countries represented in that detention facility. And we're talking about people on the terrorist watch list that they've now apprehended. 1,000 felons that were released from American prisons and deported back to their countries. 1,000 that have come over just this year. 100 pedophiles that were arrested in America, did time in America for pedophilia, that were then released, sent back home, and now they've come across. Those are just the ones we've caught. So again, this can all be stopped by President Biden reversing the action he took that created this crisis. Send the message back across the world that our border is going to be secured like every other country. But when the message today is that the border is open, they're coming in droves. Again, we were there less than an hour, and it was a constant parade of people coming across illegally because they know the loopholes in the system, and the drug dealers are the ones making the most money, and Americans are the ones paying the price. Thank y'all for coming. Thank my colleagues for coming out to see this.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks, Steve. Good job, Steve. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job, brother.
Yeah,
You were completely literate. I was shocked.